The water level in Cedar Hollow Lake dropped 17 inches overnight. By sunrise, expensive boats sat tilted on exposed mudflats. Luxury yacht slips stood empty, their docks suspended uselessly above shallow water, and at the brand-new Lakeside Point Marina, a $60 million development owned by Summit Crest Financial Group, the dockmaster stood on the main pier, staring at the receding waterline in disbelief. Where the hell is the water going? Behind him, marina guests were shouting. Boat owners were demanding answers, and the regional VP of Summit Crest Financial, a man named Brandon Kelsey, was on the phone with the county water authority, yelling, "I don't care what it takes. Find out who's draining the lake." 3 miles upstream at the northern tip of Cedar Hollow Lake, an old man stood beside a concrete spillway gate that hadn't been opened in 42 years. His name was Garrett Hollis. He was 79 years old, and he just pulled a lever that was about to cost Summit Crest Financial everything. The spillway was ancient, built in 1952 by Garrett's grandfather, William Hollis, when the family dammed Cedar Creek to create a private reservoir for their farm and timber operation. For decades, the Hollis family controlled the water flow. They opened the spillway during spring floods. They closed it during dry summers. The lake was theirs until 2019. That's when Summit Crest Financial bought 340 acres of land along the southern shore and announced plans for Lakeside Point, a luxury marina resort, and residential development. They promised it would bring jobs, tourism, and tax revenue to Iron County. The county approved it. Construction began, and nobody asked the Hollis family for permission because nobody remembered that the lake had an owner. But Garrett remembered, and now, standing beside the open spillway, watching the water pour out through the ancient concrete channel, he smiled for the first time in 5 years. Let's see how much your marina's worth without a lake. Cedar Hollow Lake wasn't a natural lake. It was a man-made reservoir created in 1952 when William Hollis built a small earthen dam across Cedar Creek. The lake was only 83 acres, but it provided water for the family's cattle, irrigated their fields, and powered a small sawmill. For decades, the Hollis family lived quietly on the northern shore. They didn't charge people for fishing. They didn't mind if locals used canoes or small boats. It was just understood. The lake belonged to the Hollis family. Garrett Hollis had lived on the lake his entire life. He grew up swimming in it, fishing in it, and working alongside his father and grandfather to maintain the dam and spillway. When his grandfather passed in 1974, the property and the water rights transferred to Garrett's father. When his father passed in 1998, everything transferred to Garrett. 83 acres of lake, 212 acres of surrounding land, and complete control over the dam and spillway. It was all recorded in the county land records. Legal, clear, undisputed. But over the years, people forgot. The lake became a local landmark. Kids called it the public lake. The county included it on tourism maps. And when Summit Crest Financial came looking for waterfront property to develop, nobody told them the lake had a private owner. In early 2019, Summit Crest purchased 340 acres of land along the southern and western shores of Cedar Hollow Lake. The sellers were local landowners who'd bought parcels decades earlier, assuming the lake was public. Summit Crest paid $4.2 million for the land. Then they announced Lakeside Point, 110 slip marina luxury clubhouse, waterfront condos, restaurants, shops, event space, total investment $60 million. The project was approved by the county in 6 months. Groundbreaking happened in the fall of 2019, and nobody contacted Garrett Hollis. Garrett first heard about the development from a neighbor in late 2019. "Did you see what they're building down at the lake?" Garrett drove down to see. He parked on the public road and stared at the construction site, excavators, concrete trucks, cranes, a massive marina taking shape along the shore. His shore. His lake. Garrett went home and pulled out the old property records, the original deed, the dam, permit, the water rights certificate. Everything was still in his name. "They built a marina on my lake," he said quietly. His daughter, Natalie, who lived with him, looked over his shoulder. "Dad, are you sure you still own it?" Garrett pointed to the deed. "It's right here." "Then we need a lawyer." Garrett hired an attorney named Philip Torrance, a property rights specialist in his early 60s. Philip reviewed the documents and confirmed what Garrett already knew. "You own the lake, the dam, the water rights, everything. So they can't build there?" "Not without your permission, which they never asked for." "What do we do?" Philip leaned back. "We sue. And we demand they halt construction immediately." On December 10, 2019, Philip filed a lawsuit in Iron County Common Pleas Court, Garrett Hollis versus Summit Crest Financial Group, Inc. The complaint alleged trespass, building on private lake without permission, violation of water rights, unauthorized use of reservoir, unjust enrichment, profiting from plaintiff's property injunction. Halt all construction. Summit Crest's response was swift and brutal. Summit Crest hired a major law firm out of Columbus. Their lead attorney was Monica Vance, known for defending developers in land disputes. Her response argued the lake had been publicly used for decades. Garrett had abandoned his water rights by not enforcing them. Summit Crest relied on county records, showing no private owner. Halting the project would cause irreparable financial harm. At the end of the brief, Monica wrote, "The plaintiff seeks to halt a $60 million project that will benefit the entire county based on a technicality in century-old paperwork." The preliminary injunction hearing was held in February 2020. Judge Harold Kemper presided. The courtroom was packed, and one side sat Garrett, Natalie, and Philip. Out on the other sat Brandon Kelsey, Summit Crest VP, Monica Vance, and a team of attorneys. Judge Kemper looked at both sides. "This is a request for a temporary injunction to halt construction. Mr. Torrance, proceed." Philip stood, holding the original deed. "Your Honor, this case is very simple. My client owns Cedar Hollow Lake. He has owned it since 1998. His family has owned it since 1952. He placed the deed on the projector. This is the original property deed, filed with the county in 1952. It clearly shows ownership of the dam, reservoir, and water rights. Summit Crest built a $60 million marina on my client's property without permission. That is trespassing, and we ask this court to stop construction immediately." Monica Vance stood, confident and polished. "Your Honor, while Mr. Hollis may technically hold title to the lake bed, he has not enforced those rights in over 40 years. The lake has been used publicly. The county has maintained it. No one has ever been charged for access. My client relied on this public use when purchasing the surrounding land. To halt construction now, after millions have been invested, would be grossly unfair." Judge Kemper looked at Philip. "Mr. Torrance, response?" Philip stood. "Your Honor, public use does not equal public ownership. My client allowed people to fish and boat. That doesn't mean he gave up his property rights. And Summit Crest's failure to do proper title research is not my client's problem." Judge Kemper took 3 days to decide. When he returned, he denied the injunction. While Mr. Hollis may have valid ownership claims, halting a $60 million project at this stage would cause disproportionate harm. The court will allow construction to continue while the ownership dispute is resolved at trial. Garrett sat in silence. Philip put a hand on his shoulder. "We're not done." The trial was scheduled for August 2020, but COVID-19 delayed it, then delayed it again. Finally, in April 2022, the trial began. By then, Lakeside Point Marina was complete. 110 boat slips, a luxury clubhouse, condos selling for $600,000 each. Summit Crest had invested $60 million and they were making money. Judge Evelyn Marsh presided. She was in her late 50s, known for being thorough and fair. The courtroom was packed with reporters, investors, and county officials. Garrett sat beside Philip and Natalie. Across the aisle sat Brandon Kelsey, Monica Vance, and a team of experts. Judge Marsh looked at both sides. "This is a bench trial regarding ownership of Cedar Hollow Lake and associated water rights. Mr. Torrance, you may present your case." Philip called a title expert who testified that Garrett's deed was legitimate, properly recorded, and never transferred. He called a water rights engineer who confirmed that the dam and spillway were privately built and maintained by the Hollis family. He called elderly residents who remembered. William Hollis building the dam in 1952, and he called Garrett Phillips. Voice was gentle. Mr. Hollis, how long have you lived on this lake? 79 years. Did you ever give Summit Crest permission to build on it? No, sir. Did anyone from the county ever ask if you owned it? No. What did you feel when you saw the marina being built? Garrett's voice was quiet. Like someone broke into my home. Monica called engineers, appraisers, and investors. She argued that the lake had been public for so long that Garrett had lost his rights through abandonment. She showed photos of people fishing, boating, and swimming over the decades. Your Honor, Mr. Hollis never once stopped anyone from using this lake. He never charged fees. He never posted signs. For all practical purposes, it was public. Philip stood for cross. Ms. Vance, does allowing someone to fish on your property mean they own it? Of course not. Then public use doesn't equal ownership. She had no response. Philip's final witness was a hydrologist who testified about the dam and spillway. The spillway is the original 1952 structure. It controls the entire lake. Whoever controls the spillway controls the water. And who controls it? Garrett Hollis. Monica stood. Objection. The spillway hasn't been operated in decades. The hydrologist smiled. It was operated 3 weeks ago. The courtroom went silent. What? Monica said. Philip pulled out a photo. It showed the spillway gate, open, and the lake, draining. 3 weeks. Earlier, Garrett stood beside the old spillway with a long steel lever in his hands. Natalie stood beside him. Dad, are you sure about this? Garrett looked at the lake, at the marina, at the boats. They took my lake. Let's see what it's worth without water. He pulled the lever. The gate groaned. Rust flaked off. Then, slowly, the gate lifted. Water began to flow. Within 6 hours, the water level dropped 8 inches. Within 12 hours, 14 inches. By the next morning, boats were grounded, docks hung in the air, and the marina was in chaos. Summit Crest filed an emergency motion to force Garrett to close the spillway. Judge Marsh held a hearing the next day. Monica was furious. Your Honor, Mr. Hollis is deliberately sabotaging a $60 million business. Philip stood calmly. My client is managing his own water reservoir. He has every legal right to operate the spillway. He's draining the lake. It's his lake. Judge Marsh looked at Garrett. Mr. Hollis, why did you open the spillway? Garrett stood. Because I needed to prove I own it. By draining it? Yes, ma'am. If I didn't own it, I wouldn't be able to do that. Judge Marsh paused. Then she almost smiled. That's actually a fair point. She looked at Monica. Your client built a marina on a privately owned lake without securing water rights. That was a business risk. Mr. Hollis is exercising his legal property rights. I'm denying your motion. Summit Crest panicked. Without water, the marina was worthless. Investors were threatening to sue. Condo buyers were demanding refunds. Brandon Kelsey called Philip directly. What does he want? Garrett, Natalie, and Philip sat across from Brandon and Monica in a conference room. Brandon spoke first. Mr. Hollis, we're prepared to offer you $2 million for a permanent water easement. Garrett shook his head. Not interested. $3 million. No. Then what do you want? Garrett leaned forward. I want the lake back. We can't tear down the marina. I don't want you to. But I want legal recognition that I own the lake. I want a conservation easement protecting it. And I want a percentage of marina revenue. Brandon blinked. A percentage. 5%. In perpetuity. That's insane. Then I'll leave the spillway open. Silence. Brandon looked at Monica. She nodded slowly. We'll do it. The settlement was signed in May 2022. Summit Crest paid Garrett $1.2 million upfront, 5% of annual marina revenue, legal recognition of lake ownership, conservation, easement protecting water quality. Garrett closed the spillway. The lake refilled and Lakeside Point Marina reopened. By 2024, Garrett was receiving $140,000 per year from the marina revenue share. He used it to restore the old dam, upgrade the spillway, and establish a wildlife conservation fund in his grandfather's name. The lake remained pristine, and every boat owner who docked at Lakeside Point now saw a small plaque at the entrance. Cedar Hollow Lake. Kigiakuliakadu, established 1952 by William Hollis, owned and protected by the Hollis family. Garrett. Hollis didn't open the spillway out of spite. He opened it to prove a point. That ownership isn't about signs or fences, it's about control. And when a bank built a $60 million marina on his family's lake without asking, he reminded them of something they'd forgotten. Water flows where it's allowed to flow, and the person who controls the gate controls everything. Summit Crest thought they'd bought waterfront property, but they forgot to buy the water, and that one mistake cost them millions. Iron County, where water has a memory.